Hello there. My name is William Nickel. I am in the Psychology of Human Development course this semester. Little about myself. I'm from Norman, Oklahoma. I currently live in Norman, Oklahoma as well. I work in Newcastle, however. I work at the middle school as a full-time para right now. I'm going to school for a liberal studies major in applied sciences with the goal of my career being in education and being a teacher. This is my fifth year of being a para from all different school districts from Norman to Newcastle to the south side of Oklahoma City. I love it and I really appreciate it. This was a very heavy set of documentaries that were required for us to watch, and the the two main points of the discussion post was nature versus nurture and the ethics of the experiments that were going on. As stated in our textbook, nurture would argue that hereditary plays the important role in bringing about that feature, compared to nurture, which is would argue that one's environment is more significant in shaping. So that's just the definition from the textbook. And watching both documentaries, whether it's The Separated at Birth or Three Identical Strangers, the conclusion that at least I came to and the percentages on how I would weigh it is really 50-50. I found that in the cases of these twins, they were all this. I mean, they were the exact same. It doesn't matter who it was. Um, it doesn't matter if it was the three brothers or the other twins that were talked about in the Separated at Birth documentary. They were all they were all identical. I mean, whether it was physically, facial features, hair, things like that. The brothers had the hands. Their hands were very distinct to everybody that they knew. So that's where I find the nature of it. It does seem pretty passed on very well, and so I don't really think you can argue that. However, whenever it comes to the first documentary, I'm thinking it was there was two girls. It was Marjorie and Paula, and unfortunately, Marjorie was someone who died very young due to self harm, and Paula kept living on. And so that's where the other 50% comes in of the nurture aspect, where they may be in different environments, but in that's the problem, is that your environment really does shape you, even if you are genetically the exact same. And there could be some sort of connection with the the whether both documentaries talked about, that separation anxiety and all of that. It could be that, but it seemed like a lot of these twins who were a part of these case studies seemed to be very okay in a sense for a little bit, and then when they kind of finally reconnected, that's when there was a little bit more issues, especially with the brothers. So I would say it's very 50-50. And a good quote that I found while doing some further research is from Jim Clemente. He is a former FBI consultant, if I'm not mistaken, and his quote said, "Genetics loads the gun, and the environment pulls the trigger." And I was looking at that quote and really digesting that quote compared to, sorry, really digesting that quote and then watching these documentaries. I mean, I don't know how that. I mean, that personally just tells me, yeah, it's a 50-50 thing where no matter what, you're the exact same person. You're going to have you're going to be identical, but still the environment messes with you. And that's the same with the brothers, being at three different levels of the class system. One's very high up, a doctor, there's a teacher who is one of them, the middle class, and then just a hardworking blue collar man who's running a store. It's very that's where it tends to be very 50-50 when it comes to that aspect. The other half of this was the ethics of it all. And I mean, I don't think there's any way you can justify these experiments going on. I mean, they're completely unethical in a lot of ways. And I mean, whether it's just honesty, there was no honesty with the people at the adoption agency in New York, and especially going back to Three Identical Strangers, where they were all videotaped and filmed for what they were saying the first good 10 years of their life. There's no honesty, there's no respect. And that's the key thing with this. There's no respect with that. They didn't care that they didn't care that Marjorie, I mean, quite frankly, killed herself when it came to these type of experiments, and Paula, had to find out later in life. And it's not only fair to them, but it's not only unfair to the twins, but it's unfair to the parents who adopted them, because I truly find that there are really good people, and the reason why all these issues are going on is this one place just wanted to get data that, I mean, to this day is not available. That's where I have the biggest flaws come in both documentaries. They talked about how a lot of information wouldn't be available until 2066, and I think that's a great indicator of how unethical these things are. They don't want this released. All the information that they were giving us and giving these people are going to be locked away. I mean, way past their deaths. So I couldn't see how there's any good ethics involved in these cases. Whether, again, it's twins dying, there that was a huge deal with mental illness and all of that, and being separated, and especially in that first documentary talking about how you had they put the twins in the same crib and then separated them, and after just a few months and all that. And it's very heartbreaking, and it's very weird to see that this is something that was happening in just a generation ago to a lot of us. So, and that's where I'm at. So it is 50-50 on nature versus nurture, and it is a very unethical way to get experimentation and to get data that, quite frankly, we will probably never know. Thank you.